actually plan to cater most of my time for your questions. So let's spend most of this 15-20 minutes answering your questions instead. I will just briefly touch on how toddlers behave and what you can do to manage these tricky behaviors, okay? So we are going to first look into the brain of your toddler. I actually prepared some kind of slides, so maybe with some images it'll be easier for you guys to follow. First of all, toddlers are impulsive. They cannot control themselves. So when they are angry, when they're frustrated, they will just yell, they will scream at you, they might throw things, they might use words that you do not wish to hear. So the reason why toddlers are impulsive is because the part of the brain that controls their impulses is not developed, which means it takes time to grow for them to be able to control themselves. We as adults have a developed brain, so we can control ourselves. When things happen, we can tell ourselves, all right, let's think of a way to solve the problem. We know that screaming is not allowed, so we don't do that. We know that being violent is wrong, so we don't do that because we have a logical brain. But if we become emotional, do you realize that some of us, we just cannot control ourselves? We start to yell at our kids for spilling the milk. We scold him, we send him to a corner because he refused to follow the rules or refused to brush his teeth. Or if your kids become violent and you get very triggered and you start hitting him. Now, notice that we have difficulties controlling our impulses even as adults. Think about your toddlers. Now, did you know that at every 1 second there are 1 million connections forming in your toddler's brain between 2 to 3 years old, which means that at any 1 second he is trying to figure out his feelings, he's trying to figure out how to think logically, how to analyze situations. He's thinking about how to communicate. He's learning what are the new words to use. He's developing his gross motor skills, learning his fine motor skills. Everything is happening at the same time. So now when you look at your toddler, I want you to think and visualize what is happening in his brain. He is trying to make sense of the world, trying to know what is happening. And therefore, he needs us to be more empathetic. So toddlers are impulsive not because they want to, but they really cannot control their impulses. You tell them you're not allowed to scream, you have to use your gentle voice. But even though they know it, they cannot control it at times. So what do we have to do? I will tell you towards the end of this chit-chat session, okay? The second thing that I want you to know about your toddler is they really have little or no concept of empathy. And this again has got to do with their brains. There is a part of the brain that is in charge of empathy. That part is not developed until about 3 years old. So even though your toddlers are not sharing his toys, or if he hurt someone and he did not say sorry, that is not his fault because he has no capacity to understand the feelings of others. He doesn't know that his actions are affecting other people. And when he say the word sorry, it has no meaning attached to it. He's saying it because you want him to say it, but he doesn't know that when he does something wrong, he can repair it and apologize. It is difficult for your toddler to understand that, and I want you to have this knowledge. So the next time when your kids are screaming, snatching toys or throwing toys, kicking you, biting you, bear in mind that he is impulsive because he has no ability to control himself. Number 2, he cannot understand what is pain. He cannot understand that when he screams, it actually hurts someone. Okay? So these are the basic knowledge that I want you to have. I know what you're thinking right now. You must be thinking, Justine, are you finding excuses for our toddlers? Does this mean that we are going to allow them to scream, to be rude, to yell at us, or to snatch toys from their siblings or to hurt their siblings? Of course not. It is our job to coach and help our little ones. So right now I'm going to go into what you can do to help your toddlers, okay? Know that they are screaming, they are being violent. These are behaviors to communicate with you. And most of the time, especially for toddlers, it is because of the lack of their emotion regulation. I'm sure you heard of the word social emotional learning. Social emotional learning comes from them being able to regulate their emotions that will affect their social behavior. Social behavior, things like kicking, like sharing, passing the toys to another, taking care of a little sibling. These are the social behavior. In order for them to have that social behaviors develop, they need to first regulate their emotions. That's why you hear the word social emotional development. And to regulate their emotion, the very first step is to be able to acknowledge and know how they feel, being aware of their feelings. The second part is for them to act on the feelings appropriately. So for your toddlers, I know many of you might be thinking, my toddler is still young, he cannot verbalize, he cannot communicate with me. How am I going to teach him? How is he going to be aware of his feelings? So this is where I'm going to come in to tell you a few tips. Number one, you can use pictures. You can get them to point out how they feel based on the pictures, or you can get them to draw or color how they feel. For example, you can say that you are screaming, you are angry right now. Why don't we find out exactly how you are feeling? Which color best represents your anger? They may not understand the words, but they do know that you are trying to help them to be aware of how they feel. And if you do this consistently, your toddler will know the routine. When they feel angry, you are there for them. You get them to point out how they feel. You talk about it, and you read books about feelings, and you let them know that it's perfectly normal to have feelings. When you are the adult, you are helping your little ones. Let them know you are feeling how you're feeling as well. You can say, I am so tired after a long day of work. I am frustrated that there are so many plates that are unwashed. I am feeling angry because I see a lot of toys in the house. Things like this, the feelings you have to point out to your toddlers, and they are actually listening, okay? And so what I want to first add in is that when you are responding to your toddler, please be really calm. When you are angry, when you start to raise your voice and you scare them, that will cause them to put up a defense and get their brain to go into the fight and flight mode because the amygdala senses threat. When you start yelling at them, the brain automatically wants to help your child cope with this stressful situation. Fight, they might start to put up the violent behaviors. Flight, they might run away. Freeze, they might stand there and cry. So, in fact, most of the outcomes of your toddler's behaviors is very much dependent on how we respond. If we can stay calm, it is so much easier for them to synchronize to our calmness and start to realize that this situation is not an emergency. There is no need for the amygdala to be activated. They can start using their logical brain to control. So your job is to stay calm so that their emotions can be controlled and you can activate their logical brain to override those impulses. This is how children slowly grow and learn to regulate their emotions. You have to label it, because when you label, you're actually activating this part of the brain called the ventral lateral cortex, and it actually calms the kids down. And I know you are saying, I labeled his emotions, I said he's angry, but he is still screaming loudly. Some children just need a little bit more time. Now, if you don't label, it is going to be worse. But when you label and you do it consistently, it becomes like his way of knowing that you are going to be there for him. Okay, so that's one. I want you to be unruffled. stay unruffled. That is my tip number 1, stay unruffled. My tip number 2 is that children feel more than they think. So please do not try to rationalize with them when your toddlers are screaming, angry, being rude. They need you to validate how they feel. They operate from their emotional brain, not their logical brain. We operate from our logical brain. So when there's a mismatch, it ends up in a power struggle. You have certain expectations for your kids, but your kids are not able to meet your expectations because they just don't have the capacity to do that, and that makes you really frustrated. You start yelling, and at the end of the day, you feel so guilty. So I hope these tips have been helpful for you to kind of figure out what you can do when your toddlers throw a tantrum, is to stay really calm and to coach your child. So when they are rude, you will want to teach them the right words to use. When they are screaming, they just want your attention. By giving them your attention, you are not spoiling them. You are just accepting how they feel. Kids need to feel loved. They want to feel belonged. So I recommend you to spend a lot of quality time with your little ones and teach them the words to use, like I mentioned, and to always repeat it. So the more you repeat, the stronger the connections are made between his emotional brain and his logical brain. And over time, he's going to tell you, Mommy, I feel angry. This is what the students in my online course tell me, that their kids can tell them, I feel angry. And I think that's brilliant. Your kids are aware of his feeling. That's the first step. Those who just join in, the first step to regulating emotions is to be aware. And the second step is to help them act on the emotions. So my tip here is that role model what you want your kids to behave. I would like to share this story. This mommy told me that the child is being violent in school, and the child was like maybe hitting his friends. The mother got so angry, she came back and she hit the child. Do you see what I'm trying to drive at? Why is the child hitting other people? He could have that similar experiences. So if you do not want your child to be violent, you have to stop the violence in your house. If you still cane your kids, now I'm not going to judge you here. It's everybody have their own parenting beliefs, and everybody just want the best for their kids, and we are all brought up differently, that we understand. So what I'm sharing with you here is based on all the research that has shown that violent coercing your child, punishing your child has no positive outcomes. So I want you to take the big step to trust yourself that you are able to guide him and discipline him. Discipline means teach, by the way. It does not mean punish. So when you teach your child the right way to behave and you role model it, so you don't scream, you cannot be screaming at your kids and telling him stop shouting when you are the one shouting. You cannot get him to stop crying, stop throwing a tantrum, stop having emotional outbursts when you are the one at that very moment having the emotional outburst. Your child will be thinking, I am doing exactly what mommy is doing. When mommy is angry, mommy shouts. So when I'm angry, I shout. But do we want our kids to learn that? We want to build a relationship based on unconditional love. We want our kids to know that regardless of their actions, we are going to be there for them. We're going to show up for them. Okay. In fact, one of the best predictors of kids being successful in life is to have someone in their life who constantly show up and help them, and have someone that they can count on. Okay, so I hope what I have shared is practical enough for you to try out, and also have a little bit of change in your perspectives about your toddler. Right now I'm going to open up to your questions, so let me just scroll up to see how I can help you guys here. Li Wan Yu Fish said, do we ask them to stop saying the rude words there and then? They seem to like the attention more. Exactly. I'm so glad you brought this up, because the more attention you give to your kids, the more they want to do it. Why? When they put up a tricky behavior, when they scream, when they shout, do you realize what happens? You stop what you're doing and you attend to him. It is a negative form of of them seeking attention, but they still get our attention. To them, it doesn't matter whether they put out good behavior or they put up a negative form of behavior. We attend to them when they scream and shout the negative behavior. Do we give them attention when they do well? No. So why should they put out the positive behaviors when we do not encourage them and reinforce the good behaviors that they have? So the trick here is to constantly encourage them for the good things that they are doing. Give more emphasis on the things they do well rather than the things that they are not doing well. Okay? Zikan said this is so useful for us. Yes, I hope that my little sharing here can help you and help your toddlers. Okay, I'm speaking up for your toddlers. Akila, toddlers don't have the capacity to feel others' feelings. So if he says sorry, that's just because you want him to do it. Exactly, right? A lot of us will think that when our kids misbehave, we say, you must say sorry. But the kids have no idea what does sorry mean, and they're just saying it just to please you. Do you want your kids to be genuinely apologetic? There are other ways for your toddler to apologize. So rather than saying sorry, you can ask them to perhaps give a high five or give a hug or share a toy. These are other ways for him to make up for maybe something that he did inappropriately. Poppy Beck said, please save this life. Yes, I'll try to save it. I hope, fingers crossed, there's no technical difficulties. Zikan friend said, I agree, so many strategies to apply. Okay, Bak said, hi Jacinth, how do I respond to my 4-year-old asking what to do if someone else hits him? Right. I have this experience with my kids as well, and it happens between the two of them. So sometimes my elder one gets a little bit too violent and he will start hitting my younger girl. So I told her, I gave her the words to use. I said stop. I asked her to put her hand out to tell the elder brother, stop, I don't like it, stop. So this is what I teach her, but sometimes at that moment she will forget that she has to say stop. So when he starts disturbing her again, I will remind her, did you tell your elder brother to stop? She said she did not. So I get her to practice. And of course, on the other hand, I will speak to my elder son to explain to him that, to be aware of the feelings of his sister. So I teach him to look out for things like if she's uncomfortable, she's not smiling, she's not happy, she's making sounds that show that she is unpleasant, then he has to learn to be aware and stop. Okay? Chuan Sam said, my 14-month-old is throwing food. How do I start to stop her from throwing food, especially vegetables? Throwing food on the floor or on the table? Throwing food because she doesn't want to eat it? Maybe I'll need a little bit more information from you here, Chun Sam. Yeah, I'll get back to you in a while, okay? Give me a bit more information. The Pink Soldier. How do I teach my son to understand without saying no so often to him at 2 years old? Right. I like that you mentioned that we should not say no because it will end up in a power struggle. I also want to inform you, at 2 years old, it is the age where your kids will say no a lot. So what can you do to teach him, instead of saying no, you can say yes with a condition. So example, if he wants to eat ice cream again for the third time, you say yes, you will love ice cream. That's when you get them to know that you acknowledge how they feel. Yes, we will do that tomorrow. So you can say yes and state the condition. Okay? Niyam, what do you do when your toddler only display violent, destructive behavior towards one specific individual or other kid? It seems like the target always react dramatically and complains to me when my son misbehave. Do I stop them from playing with each other? Okay, another kid is probably a friend. I'm assuming that. When there is, if it's only to one child, there has to already have some kind of association with the child. Maybe they just enjoy these violent behaviors together. They thrive being able to fight each other and nobody stops them. Or it could be because he has some feelings about the child that affects the way he socializes with him. So again, the social emotional feelings come in here. So I'm not sure who this friend is, but if it happens between me and my two kids and they are always violent with each other, I will, at that moment, of course I'll pull them apart, but I will start coaching them and teaching them the right way of behaving. Toddlers are not born knowing the right and appropriate behavior. They are only reacting based on their feelings. So what we need to do is to constantly teach them, and I will not pull my two kids away and say that, okay, both of you stay apart, no more fighting, I'm so tired of you guys fighting. Because when I do that, they will never learn how to negotiate conflicts. They will not know how to navigate relationships and to work with someone else. So I will put them together. So in this case, I'm not sure who the kid is. If it's a relative, then yeah, you can, there's no way you can separate them. You can put them together to teach them, okay? Adeline, what to do if a 4-year-old refuses to listen, constantly refuses to listen to instructions such as eat and shower, etc. When he refuses to listen, this is the behavior, and there must be a reason why. So again, attune to him, let him know that you know exactly how he feels. Ask him for the reason. Maybe he is scared, or maybe maybe this is just a power struggle where he doesn't want to be controlled. So instead of you giving him instructions that it's time to eat or it's time to shower, alternatively, you can get him to tell you what you should do instead. So have a very fixed routine. Have a routine so your child can tell you what to do next, okay? How do you get your toddler to listen? Okay, wait, I need to pause for a moment because my girl woke up. Okay, can you wait there for me? Alright. Okay, I'm going to put her here with me. Today she's going to join us for the live. Oh dear. Okay. Right. Okay, I'm just going to answer one or two more questions because she's here right now, okay? How do you get your toddler to listen? Now, if you want to get your toddler to listen, you must first listen to your toddler. You must first let him or her know that you are there for him, you are connecting with him, and because of the connection, and that's where they will cooperate, okay? Sorry, one last question, maybe choose some question, the food question, okay? She throws it on the floor because she doesn't like that type of food. I've tried to ask her to put it on the side of the table, but it doesn't seem to work. So you can role model what she should do if she doesn't want to eat that specific vegetable, right? So you can tell her that if she doesn't like it, she can put it at the side of her plate. And because even though you tell her that, even though she knows it, again, remember they lack the impulse control, right? So you need to stay really unruffled. Do not show that you are going to lose in this power struggle. So be really calm and tell her that, right, if you do not want, you put it here and you remind her over and over again, okay? Right, so I think that's all, guys. So for those of you who just asked me the questions, can you please drop me a direct message because Charlotte is here. Okay, so any feedback for me, feel free to type it in the comments. We're going to end off really soon. Again, maybe what you can do is to type in one thing that you learned today, because I believe I've spoken a lot. What is one main takeaway that you have? Zikan said so cute. This is her second time on live. Every time I do a coaching call with my students in the course, right, she will appear and make her entrance. Okay, Bibaj said thank you, Justine. Lenza says good. Okay, Niam said thank you. Alright, okay, so I see a lot of thumbs up. I assume that you have benefited from this. Ziling said acknowledge your toddler's feeling. Evelyn said great session. Poppy Beck said to keep calm. Second friends to say to label the emotions. Yeah. Okay. Right. Seems like you guys are definitely learning something. Okay. At live say if you want your toddler to listen to your toddler. How true? It's true. Yeah. It's really difficult now, guys. It's very difficult to be calm. But it can be done. I took years, and you don't need to take that long, because all the more you learn, you get better at it. Okay. Pink Soldier, to watch more of your life, to stay calm and make your stand, stay unruffled. Great. Can we do a baby session as well? Ask me the questions, Evelyn. You pop the question into my inbox, okay? And stay unruffled. Alright, that's all.